Ladies and gentlemen, when you begin to wake up to the truth, when you finally see someone for who they really are, it changes the entire dynamic of the relationship. We've all encountered people who wear masks, not metaphorical masks, psychological ones, designed for deceit. When you recognize what's beneath that mask, when you know what they've been hiding, something primal happens in them and something empowering begins in you. Today, I want to walk you through 7 psychological tactics used by toxic, manipulative, and frankly evil people when they realize that you figured them out. And more importantly, I'll show you what that awareness activates in your nervous system and how to use it to protect yourself. When someone with manipulative or malicious intent realizes that you figured them out, the first thing they often do is escalate their tactics. This isn't accidental. It's a direct, almost instinctual response rooted in their psychological makeup. For people who thrive on control, image management, and deception, being seen clearly is an existential threat. It pulls the rug out from under their illusion of dominance. So when they sense they've lost the upper hand, their brain goes into overdrive. This escalation is often rapid, intense, and strategic. What you'll notice first is an increase in intensity. Maybe the manipulation was once subtle, a passive-aggressive comment here, a small lie there, but now it becomes more overt. They may begin gaslighting more aggressively, twisting your words, rewriting history, or challenging things you're sure actually happened. These tactics are designed to destabilize your reality. Their goal is to make you question your perceptions, your memories, and ultimately your confidence. If they can't keep their mask on, they'll try to confuse you enough that you doubt your own ability to read the situation. This escalation often coincides with emotional volatility. They may become more reactive, explosive, or unpredictable. This behavior serves a dual purpose. First, it punishes you emotionally for seeing too much. Second, it keeps you on the defensive. When you're managing their outbursts, you're too overwhelmed to question their deeper motives or dissect their manipulations. It's a redirection of your attention away from their deceit and back onto their emotional state. And the moment you start managing their emotions instead of examining their behavior, they regain power. Escalation doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it's quiet and cold. They might withdraw affection or communication altogether. This sudden silence, often referred to as the silent treatment, is a form of emotional control. They want you to feel unsettled, off balance, wondering what you did wrong. This ambiguity is not random. It's intentional. It keeps you seeking their approval, trying to fix something that was never your fault to begin with. This uncertainty triggers a biological response in your brain, specifically a spike in cortisol. And in that state of internal stress, you're less able to think critically or act decisively. Another way evil individuals escalate is through triangulation. They bring a third party into the dynamic to complicate things, perhaps a friend, a family member, or a coworker. This third person is used either as a comparison, why can't you be more like them, or as a confidant, they agree with me that you're the problem. This tactic exploits your social instincts and need for belonging. When you're isolated, you're more vulnerable to control. And when someone else is manipulated into siding with them, it amplifies your confusion and self-doubt. In some cases, they begin to mirror you. They mimic your values, language, or emotional states in order to regain rapport. But this is not genuine connection. It's calculated mimicry. If they sense that you're pulling away, they'll try to reel you back in with a false sense of understanding or alignment. It's an emotional illusion. They'll say all the right things, not because they mean them, but because they're desperate to reset the game and keep you in it. The escalation may also involve threats, covert or overt. Maybe they hint that they'll tell people what you're really like or imply you'll regret your actions. This is intimidation dressed as concern. Their goal is to control your future behavior by instilling fear. This kind of mental warfare isn't always shouted. Often it's whispered, a small comment that lingers, a look that says more than words ever could. Your nervous system picks up the threat even before your mind does. One of the most dangerous forms of escalation is the attempt to flip the narrative. They may start accusing you of the very behavior they've been engaging in. This psychological inversion is meant to confuse outsiders and, more importantly, destabilize your self-perception. When someone accuses you of manipulation or dishonesty while actively engaging in those things themselves, it creates a disorienting experience known as gaslight projection. The purpose is simple. If they can get others to doubt you first, your truth becomes harder to believe. And perhaps the most painful form of escalation is the use of your vulnerabilities against you. Everything you shared in moments of trust becomes ammunition. Your fears, your insecurities, your past, nothing is off limits. This is not conflict resolution. It's warfare. Their intention isn't to solve problems, but to win at any cost. When someone begins to weaponize your openness, you must understand the game has changed. You're not dealing with misunderstanding, you're dealing with malice. At this stage, your body will start to register the truth before your mind fully accepts it. You'll feel it in your chest, in your stomach, in your sleep patterns. That's your nervous system recognizing a threat. Trust. These physical cues, tightness, fatigue, restlessness, are signals that you're under sustained psychological stress. And when your brain senses danger, it defaults to survival modes: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. But you are not helpless. The greatest antidote to manipulation is clarity. Not emotional outbursts, not long explanations, just clarity. When you stop engaging in their games and start acting from a place of calm self-awareness, their tactics lose their effect. You may not be able to control what they do, but you can control how you respond. And when you maintain that clarity, when you stop reacting and start observing, they no longer hold power. They escalate because they're afraid, not of you, but of what you now know. And what you now know is your greatest weapon. Gaslighting is not a mistake, a misunderstanding, or a slip of the tongue. It is a calculated psychological strategy, one that's specifically designed to undermine your grip on reality. When someone realizes that you've caught on to who they truly are, when you've seen behind the mask, they don't always panic outwardly. Instead, many become more precise, more intentional, and more manipulative in their gaslighting. It's not about denying something minor. It's about gradually, methodically distorting your perception of reality so that you start to question your own judgment. This is psychological warfare, and they play it like a surgeon, not a soldier. When they gaslight with precision, it begins subtly. They won't necessarily call you crazy. They'll start with small, plausible denials. That's not what I said. I think you're remembering that wrong. Wrong. You always overthink things. These phrases seem innocent in isolation, but over time they create cracks in your cognitive framework. You start to second guess yourself. You hesitate before speaking. You reframe your own memories to match their version of events. That hesitation is not accidental. It is their victory. The precision of this tactic lies in its structure. It targets the way your brain processes memory, emotion, and threat. Neuroscience shows that repeated self-doubt shrinks activity in areas of the brain associated with self-trust and confidence, like the prefrontal cortex, while increasing stress responses in the amygdala. This creates a loop where your emotional brain overrides your logical mind. You stop trusting your instincts, even when they're screaming that something is off. And that's exactly where they want you. Disoriented, off balance, and dependent on their version of the truth. What makes this kind of manipulation especially dangerous is its invisibility. It doesn't always come with raised voices or aggressive threats. Often it's gentle, calm, rational. They speak in a tone that makes you feel like you're the one being unreasonable. You'll hear lines like, "Why would I lie about something so small?" Or "I'm just trying to help you understand." Their demeanor is composed, but the message is sharp. You can't trust yourself. Over time, you begin to internalize their perspective. You filter your own experiences through their lens. You dismiss your own gut feelings because they've taught you to believe those feelings are flawed. This leads to cognitive dissonance, a psychological state where your mind holds two conflicting beliefs. Well, I know something's wrong, and maybe I'm overreacting. That tension creates mental fatigue. And in that exhaustion, you become more susceptible to influence. This is exactly how they maintain control, by keeping you mentally drained and emotionally confused. They will often use your compassion against you. If you bring up something that felt off or dishonest, they might turn it around with, "It hurts that you would think that about me," or "I can't believe you're accusing me after everything I've done for you." This shifts the conversation from the issue at hand to your behavior, your doubt, your tone, your reaction. Suddenly, you're the problem. Not what happened, not what they did, just you. And to someone who values peace and connection, this reversal is devastating. You retreat, you apologize. And once again, the truth gets buried. The most skilled gaslighters also know when to reinforce false memories with selective truth. They'll mix real events with slight distortions, creating a version of the past that feels almost correct, except for the parts that protect them. They'll say, yes, we argued, but it wasn't the way you remember, or sure, I said that, but you left out the part where you overreacted. These hybrid truths confuse your memory and weaken your confidence. You stop trusting what you felt, what you heard, what you saw. That loss of self-trust is not collateral damage. It is the objective. Another layer of precision comes when they get others involved. They'll subtly influence the opinions of people around you. They might say things to mutual friends like, she's been really stressed lately, or he's going through something right now. On the surface, this sounds like concern. But underneath, it's a preemptive strike. They are quietly discrediting you before you even speak. So when you finally try to explain what's been happening, people already see you through the distorted lens the manipulator created. Eventually, you start questioning your emotional responses. You feel anxious, but you're not sure why. You feel sad, but can't articulate the cause. Your brain, now flooded with doubt, loses the capacity to clearly identify the source of distress. And in that fog, they thrive. Because if you can't name what's hurting you, you can't fight it. This is the final stage of precision gaslighting, not just controlling your memory, but severing your emotional awareness. You are no longer connected to your truth. You are floating in their version of reality. But there's a turning point. There's always a moment, sometimes quiet, sometimes explosive, where something doesn't sit right. A word, a reaction, a contradiction, and your nervous system, far wiser than you realize, alerts you. Suddenly you're the problem, not what happened, not what they did, just you. And to someone who values peace and connection, this reversal is devastating. You retreat, you apologize, and once again, the truth gets buried. The most skilled gaslighters also know when to reinforce false memories with selective truth. They'll mix real events with slight distortions, creating a version of the past that feels almost correct, except for the parts that protect them. They'll say, yes, we argued, but it wasn't the way you remember, or sure, I said that, but you left out the part where you overreacted. These hybrid truths confuse your memory and weaken your confidence. You stop trusting what you felt, what you heard, what you saw. That loss of self-trust is not collateral damage. It is the objective. Another layer of precision comes when they get others involved. They'll subtly influence the opinions of people around you. They might say things to mutual friends like, she's been really stressed lately, or he's going through something right now. On the surface, this sounds like concern. But underneath, it's a preemptive strike. They are quietly discrediting you before you even speak. So when you finally try to explain what's been happening, people already see you through the distorted lens the manipulator created. Eventually, you start questioning your emotional responses. You feel anxious, but you're not sure why. You feel sad, but can't articulate the cause. Your brain, now flooded with doubt, loses the capacity to clearly identify the source of distress. And in that fog, they thrive. Because if you can't name what's hurting you, you can't fight it. This is the final stage of precision gaslighting. Not just controlling your memory, but severing your emotional awareness. You are no longer connected to your truth. You are floating in their version of reality. But there's a turning point. There's always a moment, sometimes quiet, sometimes explosive, where something doesn't sit right. A word, a reaction, a contradiction, and your nervous system, far wiser than you realize, alerts you. A flash of clarity breaks through. That moment is sacred. You may doubt it, but if you honor it, it becomes the first crack in the illusion. The only way out is through conscious, intentional self-trust. Document what happened. Write it down. Say it out loud to yourself. Reality becomes clearer when it's spoken. Slowly, you begin to rebuild the link between your memory and your perception. You stop outsourcing your reality to someone who benefits from your confusion. Gaslighting is not just manipulation. It is a theft of clarity, a hijacking of the self. And when done with precision, it can take months or years to recognize. But once you do, you are no longer in the fog. You are no longer at their mercy. You are awake. And awareness, once achieved, is irreversible. When someone with toxic or manipulative tendencies realizes that you figured them out, when they know that you've seen the real version of them behind the charm, excuses or deception, they often resort to playing the victim. This isn't about remorse. It's not vulnerability. It's strategy. It's control dressed as weakness. And the precision with which they do this is often astonishing. They flip the narrative before it's even been fully told. Suddenly, they aren't the one who manipulated, lied, or deceived. They're the one who's been hurt, misunderstood, or unfairly treated. This tactic serves a very specific purpose. It disarms you. It's a psychological pivot designed to redirect your attention, your guilt, and even your empathy. They know that if they can position themselves as the one who has suffered, they can shift the spotlight away from their behavior and onto your response. And if you are someone who values fairness, kindness, or emotional responsibility, that shift can be deeply destabilizing. So you begin to second guess your confrontation. Was I too harsh? Did I misread something? Maybe they really didn't mean it the way it felt. You start trying to hold space for their feelings, even as they refuse to acknowledge the damage they've done to yours. And in doing that, you hand your power back to them without even realizing it. What makes this tactic particularly insidious is how emotionally convincing it can be. They may cry, talk about their traumatic past, or describe how everyone always misunderstands them. They'll say things like, "I've been through so much already," or "I can't believe you turn on me like this." See, this is not true vulnerability. It's a performance calibrated to gain sympathy and erase accountability. It's emotional theater. And in the process, they recast themselves as the wounded hero in a story where you were just supposed to play a supporting role. They know how to tap into your compassion. They rely on your capacity to empathize because they have weaponized the very qualities that make you human. They want you to feel responsible for their pain, even if that pain is the result of their own behavior. They want you to feel like setting boundaries or telling the truth somehow makes you the villain. And the more you absorb that guilt, the easier it is for them to keep operating unchecked. This false victimhood is often reinforced socially. They may go to others first, painting a picture of themselves as someone who's been deeply hurt or betrayed. This isn't accidental, it's a preemptive strike. By shaping the narrative early, they can recruit allies, manipulate perceptions, and create a buffer against your truth. Now, if and when you decide to speak up, people have already been conditioned to view you through a lens of suspicion or criticism. You're not the one who is harmed. You're one causing drama or overreacting or being cruel to someone who's already been through enough. In these moments, it's important to remember something crucial. Being hurt is not the same as being right. Someone can feel pain and still be accountable for what they've done. But when a manipulative person plays the victim, they collapse those categories. They suggest that because they're upset, they must also be innocent. And if they're innocent, then you must be guilty. It's a subtle reconfiguration of the emotional landscape, and it can be incredibly effective, especially if you haven't learned to trust your own emotional signals yet. You may find yourself trapped in an emotional loop, trying to defend yourself without being cruel, trying to speak your truth without causing more harm. And all the while, they're not interested in mutual understanding. They're not trying to repair or grow. They're trying to escape the consequences of being seen. That's what playing the victim is all about. It's not about processing pain. It's about avoiding responsibility. It's about manipulating empathy to preserve power. Eventually, you start to notice the pattern. Every time they're confronted, there's a breakdown, a story, a memory from childhood, a traumatic experience that suddenly explains everything. And you're left wondering, again, if maybe you're being too hard on them. But the truth is, real healing doesn't reject accountability. True victims don't need to erase your reality to honor their own. They can hold both. They can say, yes, I've been through things, and yes, I hurt you. Let's face it together. But manipulators don't want that. They want to be excused, absolved, pitied me. Your greatest challenge is to hold on to clarity in these moments, to resist the pull of guilt that has nothing to do with your actions, to understand that someone crying in front of you is not always the one who is wronged. Emotional intensity is not evidence of truth. You have to separate the performance from the facts. You have to return to what you know, not what they want you to feel. And what you know is that their pain does not cancel out your experience, that their emotions no matter how loud, do not invalidate your boundaries. That their story, no matter how carefully constructed, does not rewrite what really happened. When they play the victim, you don't need to fight. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to stay rooted in reality. Because in a world where manipulation hides behind emotion, your clarity is your power. Your refusal to abandon your truth is the one thing they cannot control. When manipulative or toxic individuals realize that you've seen through their mask, that you're no longer buying into their lies, illusions, or distortions, they often don't face you directly. Instead, they recruit others to do their bidding. What's often referred to as a flying monkeys. These are people they pull into the conflict consciously or unconsciously to pressure you, isolate you, or undermine you. It's not random, it's strategic. And it's one of the most disorienting tactics because it weaponizes your relationships, your reputation, and your sense of social safety. Flying monkeys are not always malicious themselves. Many are unaware that they're being used. Manipulators are experts at crafting narratives that evoke sympathy and loyalty. They'll share half-truths, exaggerated versions of events, or outright lies, all wrapped in emotion. They'll position themselves as the victim, spinning a story where you've become the aggressor, the selfish one, the unstable one. The goal is simple: turn people against you before you can tell your side. That way, even if you try to explain later, you're walking into a room that's already been programmed to mistrust you. The manipulator understands that human beings are wired for connection, for fairness, for belonging. So they use that wiring against you. They create the illusion that they are the one being wronged, not because they seek justice, but because they know that if they can rally people to their side, they can regain a sense of control. They don't just want to protect their image, they want to destroy yours. This isn't a misunderstanding. It's a deliberate act of social sabotage. Flying monkeys come in many forms. Some are close friends or family members who've known the manipulator for years and can't imagine they'd ever be capable of deception. Others may be people with their own insecurities, eager to feel important, needed, or morally superior by helping someone they think is in distress. And then there are those who see an opportunity, who are already inclined toward gossip, judgment, or drama, and are easily swayed by a one-sided story that paints you in a negative light. Regardless of their intentions, their actions serve the same purpose. They carry out the emotional or reputational attacks that the manipulator no longer feels safe doing directly. What makes this tactic especially painful is that it strikes at your sense of trust. People you thought were neutral or even supportive begin to act distant, judgmental, or hostile. Conversations feel colder. You hear your name come up in whispers. You're asked to explain things you never did, defend feelings you never expressed. You feel like you're on trial, but you've never been allowed to speak. That confusion, that sense of being ambushed or outnumbered is not coincidental. It's the precise psychological state the manipulator is trying to induce. In this fog, self-doubt begins to grow. You wonder if you really did something wrong. You question whether you could have handled things differently. And the more isolated you feel, the more tempting it becomes to silence yourself just to stop the bleeding. That's the moment they're waiting for. Because silence for the manipulator isn't peace, it's compliance. It means you've backed down. It means they've reclaimed control. There's another layer to this tactic: plausible deniability. The manipulator rarely tells the flying monkeys, go attack them. Instead, they seed the story and let the rest happen organically. That way, if you call them out, they can say, I never told anyone to treat you that way, or I can't control what people think. It's a calculated game of psychological chess. Every move is designed to make you feel like you're overreacting, paranoid, or imagining things. But you're not. The presence of flying monkeys is one of the clearest signs that you're dealing with someone who is not just emotionally immature, but potentially dangerous. It's about gaining sympathy, loyalty, and backup before you even realize you're in a war. They anticipate your truth and get ahead of it. It's not self-protection. It's a preemptive strike against credibility. The impact of this tactic is devastating. You start noticing people pulling away. Conversations feel awkward. Invitations stop coming. People you once trusted now look at you with suspicion, concern, or condescension. You're not sure what they've been told, only that something has shifted. This erosion of social trust is not an accident, it's the goal. The manipulator knows that isolation makes it harder for you to push back, to speak up, or to feel emotionally secure. When you're alienated, you're easier to control. At the same time, the manipulator keeps up appearances. They act hurt, confused, maybe even magnanimous. You wish them the best, they'll say. Ye just don't know what more I could have done. These subtle messages make them appear mature and reasonable. Meanwhile, your silence forced by shock, emotional fatigue, or strategic restraint becomes fuel for their narrative. If you don't speak up, they say you're hiding something. If you do speak up, they say you're proving their point. It's a trap, damned if you do, dismissed if you don't. This tactic works because it exploits the human tendency to pick sides, to look for heroes and villains in every story. The manipulator frames themselves as the one who tried, who cared, who was blindsided, and you become the one who overreacted, misunderstood, or lashed out. And even if people don't fully believe them, many will choose the path of least resistance, staying silent, staying neutral, avoiding the discomfort of confronting the truth. But you have to remember something. The need to smear someone before they speak reveals exactly how much truth the manipulator is afraid of. People who are innocent don't need to run interference. People who are genuine don't need to manage other people's perceptions. This tactic is a confession, spoken not in words, but in behavior. It tells you everything you need to know about their integrity or lack thereof. So how do you respond? With patience, with clarity, with truth, not for them, not to win back those who turned, but for yourself. You don't need to rush to clear your name. The truth has a longer shelf life than a lie. You don't need to match their performance with one of your own. Just speak with consistency, stay grounded in the facts, and let time reveal the patterns, because it always does. Souls. You will lose people during this process. Some will believe the manipulator. Others will stay silent and disappoint you with their inaction. But you'll also gain something more valuable: clarity about who actually sees you, who genuinely knows your heart, and who stands beside you when the noise gets loud. The smear campaign feels like a loss, but it's also a filter. It shows you where real connection exists and where it never did. And most importantly, it teaches you to trust your perception. If someone is working this hard to silence your voice, it's because that voice holds truth. And truth doesn't need an army to stand behind it. It just needs to be spoken with courage, even in the quiet. When someone toxic realizes you've seen behind their carefully constructed persona, when you've begun to understand the harm they cause, the lies they tell, and the masks they wear, they don't simply accept the truth or take responsibility. Instead, they attempt to regain control of the narrative. It's not just about saving face. It's about rewriting the entire story in a way that favors them and discredits you. It's about turning the spotlight away from their behavior and reframing the situation so that they can reclaim power. Not just over others' perceptions, but over your reality. Controlling the narrative is psychological warfare, disguised as explanation. It may sound like reason, like maturity, like someone trying to resolve things. But beneath that surface is a calculated effort to manipulate meaning. They don't want to fix what happened. They want to redefine what happened so that it looks, sounds, and feels different than the truth you lived. They start subtly. They reinterpret the facts. They say things like, "That's not how I remember it," or "You misunderstood what I meant." In isolation, these might sound like innocent statements, but when they are repeated enough and layered with emotional pressure, they become a strategy. You begin to question your memory. You wonder if you're overreacting. You may even feel the need to justify your emotions. The goal is to slowly erode your confidence in your version of events. Then they move beyond you. They begin speaking to others, telling their version first. And make no mistake, timing matters here. Timing matters here. The person who tells the story first often has the upper hand. If they can frame themselves as calm, logical, even wounded, they appear trustworthy. Anyone who listens to you afterward is already hearing you through a filter. They'll wonder, why is this person so emotional? Why are they so angry? Because the manipulator planted that expectation. It's not just about the story. It's about tone, delivery, and framing. In this revised narrative, they become the misunderstood one, the one who tried, the one who was pushed too far. And you become difficult, confused, over-emotional. You become the unreliable one. And the worst part is, if you push back too hard, they'll use your response as further evidence of your instability. See, this is what I've been dealing with. It's a trap. a rigged game of emotional chess where every move you make has been anticipated and weaponized. This tactic is especially powerful because it targets your sense of identity. When someone tries to rewrite your experience, it doesn't just hurt your feelings. It disrupts your sense of self. You know what you saw, you know how it felt, but now those memories are being challenged. That certainty is being chipped away. It's a form of gaslighting, but broader and more public. They aren't just rewriting your story in private. They're trying to broadcast it, edit it, and publish a version that makes them look like the protagonist and you the problem. And if you've ever confronted this behavior, you've likely seen how quickly they shift tactics. When cornered, they move from denial to defensiveness, from defensiveness to distraction. They bring up unrelated issues. They accuse you of things from the past. They make vague moral appeals. No one's perfect, or everyone makes mistakes. The goal is not resolution. It's misdirection. They want to blur the issue just enough that no one, including you, can see it clearly anymore. Sometimes they even pretend to agree with you on the surface. They admit to some of the behavior, but downplay it or justify it. Yes, I said that, but only because I was under so much stress. Well, you know how much I've been going through. It's a performance of accountability, not the real thing. They give just enough to appear reflective, while still retaining control of the deeper narrative. Because if they control the interpretation, they control the outcome. One of the most difficult parts of this experience is feeling like you're being erased from your own story. It's not just that they lied, it's that they're trying to overwrite your truth. And often they're convincing, charismatic, persuasive. They know how to play to their audience. They know what tone to use, what details to emphasize, and when to cry on cue. It's all part of a calculated effort to make their version the one people believe. And more importantly, the one you start to question yourself. So how do you protect your sense of truth in the face of this? You stay anchored in the facts. You write down what happened. You speak with clarity, not to convince them, but to stay grounded in your own perception. You resist the urge to match their performance. Your truth doesn't need embellishment. It needs consistency. You don't have to outmaneuver their manipulation. You just have to not abandon your reality. And over time, their narrative begins to show cracks. Because while manipulation is agile, it's also unsustainable. Lies require maintenance. Stories told to protect ego eventually contradict themselves, and people begin to notice patterns. The very control they work so hard to maintain begins to unravel because the truth has a weight. It sits there silently, patiently waiting to be seen. When they try to regain control of the narrative, they reveal what they fear most, being exposed. And in that moment, your clarity, your calm, your refusal to be rewritten becomes your greatest defense. You are not here to play a role in their version of events. You are here to live in truth. And that is something no narrative, no matter how persuasive, can ever fully erase. When evil people realize that you see them clearly, when the mask slips and their manipulation is no longer effective, they don't retreat, they retaliate. They escalate, gaslight, play the victim, recruit others, smear your name, and desperately try to rewrite the story to cast themselves as the hero and you as the villain. Not because they're confused, but because they're threatened. Clarity is their enemy. Your awareness strips them of power. But here's what you must remember. Their behavior is not a reflection of your worth, but a reaction to your awakening. Every tactic they use is designed to pull you back into their web, to make you question your truth, to make you shrink in fear, to make you doubt what you already know in your bones. Don't fall for it. Your job is not to fix them. It's not to convince anyone of who you are. Your job is to stay grounded in your truth, protect your peace, and refuse to hand your voice back to the person who tried to steal it. Because in the end, the most powerful response to manipulation is clarity, calm, boundaries, silence when necessary, and courage when it counts. You are not crazy. You are not overreacting. You are simply awake. And once you're awake, you don't go back to sleep.